if it wasn't for your course, I don't know how I would have been able to enter the ecosystem the way that I have, you know.
It's too nice. I do it for just that reason, for people to be able to take advantage of it because it's a great industry.
Yep, yep. So I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I've been living here since March of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Definitely, really different. And then, the nice thing and the difficult thing about living in Brazil is that there aren't a lot of people that speak English. Like only a small percentage of the population speaks English.
Yeah.
So the reason why that's good is because it forces you to like actually learn the language and
Yeah.
and that stuff. Otherwise, you're dependent on Google Translate for everything.
How
And
did you
then
pick Brazil? Like what so where did you live first? Where did you live first?
okay. Yeah, so I was living in New York City, but I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was living there for a while. Lived in California when I was in college, and then but yeah, I've been watching Brazilian movies and series and listening to Brazilian music. So even before I went to Brazil,
Okay. So
and
that's how you
then,
picked it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then my family's from Haiti, so like Haitians are huge. Well, there's a huge division in Haiti. Besides our own national team, there's you're either a Brazil fan or an Argentina fan,
Oh, for
and so
soccer, for football.
for
For
soccer,
football.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So that my family was mostly Brazilian, Brazil team fan and that kind of stuff. So I was always curious about the country as like and wanting to see. And there are a lot of similarities between Brazil's history and the U.S.'s history and that kind of thing. I would just say the development here has been, the growth in the U.S. has been much faster than the
Sure.
growth in Brazil. But there's a lot of parallels, a lot of diversity. Yeah, so it's a really cool place to be.
Do you think it'll be a long-term thing for you, like semi-permanent or permanent or
Yeah, I would say probably semi permanent. Right now, I'm on track for permanent residency. I have residency here, but if I stay here long enough and that kind of thing, and I can prove that I'm able to survive without being dependent on the state,
yeah.
then I get then I can get permanent residency, and then so that would be really cool. And then, but yeah, my goal is basically just to have the option. Initially, when I first the very first time I came to Brazil, not last March, but like right before COVID, I was just doing it to skip winter. And so that would probably be the thing is like I spend the warm weather, and the other thing too is in Brazil, winter time is actually in the last half of the year. And so so I can literally have a perpetual summer. Their summertime, okay. So their winter's last half of the year, but it's actually
Yeah.
summertime.
Right.
So
It's the
so
inverse of
like
here.
exactly. So it's actually getting progressively hotter over here, whereas in the north, it's getting progressively colder.
Yeah.
So there, you kind of, if you time it right, you can basically just be in a perpetual summer.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
all yeah.
That's amazing. That's super. It's such a great story. It's why I wanted to do this. So I appreciate you being willing to do this, just so people can
Yeah,
kind
for
of hear
sure.
your personal story. I thought it was so cool connecting with you, and I did want to talk a little business, just let people hear your story about the path you're on right now. Maybe we could just go ahead and go there. I mean, so software engineer by trade, right?
Yes, yeah. So I started as a software engineer around 2011, 2012. Mostly writing Python and that kind of thing. And then initially I got into like the Salesforce enterprise application space. So building
Oh, okay.
applications not for consumers, but building enterprise apps. And so like even within my first year, I was working with like hedge funds and healthcare companies and that kind of thing, manufacturers. And then from there, I kind of got into like product development, building applications for enterprises to buy. So instead of implementing custom software for one company, you build
Right.
the software first and then you license it out to a whole bunch of different companies. And then I was doing that for quite a bit, mostly on the healthcare side. Then I got back into consulting, and most of the projects have either been either healthcare or in the finance world, which is how I got privy to the whole commercial lending space and that
Right.
kind of thing. Because I was writing software for a lot of these different commercial institutions and private equity firms and hedge funds and stuff like that. And when you're writing the code, especially enterprise code, you actually have to, on the back end, the business logic, you have to write these calculations, depending on what that business's criteria is and stuff. So I had been familiar with some of these things, but I just didn't know what the actual application and the purpose of it was for, other than, I needed to do this, I needed to do this, I need you to divide it by this, and et cetera, and having that formula, like I would implement it in code, but I didn't know why, and I
Like
didn't know
why
what
they're
it actually.
calculating these ratios and what the heck does it mean and why do they
Exactly.
even care? Like how does it equate to risk and all this kind of stuff? You were writing the
Right.
code for it, but you were like, what does this do? And then the way you told me when we met each other is you were kind of like, well, wait a minute, this is big money in this stuff. Maybe I should dip my toe into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, one thing that stood out to me was like especially, when you're just working on stuff, you take a look at some of these deals, and you're able to see like the fees that they get and the things that they're charging, and you're like, damn. And then the thing that first thing that came to mind was, in my head, when when you see these things, you're like, okay, these are high fees, these are banks, that's probably why, but really it's just part of the origination process.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's the thing I always tell people is like, there's a reason there's a bank on every corner, or at least there used to be before the digital world, right? I mean, lending
Mm-hmm.
is big money. Small
Yep.
businesses always need capital in order to grow. And so if you can be
Mm-hmm.
that conduit, there's really, really good money in it. There's just really good money. It's just one of those things. It's like people say, like, what do you do? Well, you're kind of selling money, right? And people
Yeah,
always want some in order to grow a business. It's just required. What I love about your
absolutely.
stories, you went from like software engineer to starting to get into this. Before we dive much further into that, you're just an entrepreneur in general. Like, don't you own some property of your own? And
Yeah, yeah. So I was able to purchase some multifamily apartments and that kind of thing. So I have property in Connecticut that I collect rent from and that kind of thing. And so I have some software around that too, and collecting rent and handling maintenance tickets and that kind of stuff. And then I've actually been mostly building like different products, like on my own, venturing and trying different things. At one point, I even had a car dealer license, so I could
I
actually.
love it. I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I used to go to car auctions and purchase different cars, and then I put them online, and then I would actually loan out. I would loan out with an interest rate.
No,
Yeah, yeah. So that was something I did too. That
you're
was
something
it didn't
else.
Yeah, it didn't work out as well as I would have liked, but I think if I had, knowing what I know now, I probably would have approached it differently and had more success. But it was definitely something, I sold. It was profitable. It just wasn't as profitable as I wanted it to
Sure.
be. Yeah, and then the other thing too is the car dealer license. That thing gets tricky because I was leasing the license from somebody else, and then so I was dependent on them keeping their license up and running and that kind of thing. So I probably, because the challenge is like a lot of places when you're a car dealer,
Yeah.
you have to have a plot of land and it needs to be empty and it needs to be designated for where you're going to be storing the cars, and then technically you can only sell the cars online, or you can sell those cars from that lot. And so I was mostly doing online, and yeah, so it was a whole
So
process.
if I could, I'd like to press on that a little bit. Like, where does all this come from, this entrepreneurial? So I'll give you a second to think that through, and I'll just do a quick version of me. Like, my father was a corporate guy for a long time, very successful, very number two in an enormous organization. So I always wanted to emulate my father, and then he did start his own businesses, and so a lot of times that's what you see is like people see someone, doesn't always have to be a parent, it could just be someone who's entrepreneurial and they're like, oh, I'm going to go that path. So where does that path come from? Like, what is it that you just wanted to be so entrepreneurial? Can you point to it?
Thing. I think yeah, that's a good question. I mean, my family's definitely entrepreneurial, but most of them have they definitely are. They've worked. They're hard workers in general.
Right.
Just really hardworking in general. And for me, my goal had always been to like help, like make it so that either my family wouldn't have to work, or so my mom and my dad wouldn't have to work
Got it.
as much, or I guess, and I also like the autonomy. And then, growing up, I listened to a lot of hip hop. And so a lot of the the music, and then the stories of the folks was always entrepreneurs. Like
For
you'd have a
sure.
guy, he was a rapper, but he also had a drinking like a drink company, like sold sodas
Yeah,
or
now
had
everybody's into like liquor, right? So
exactly
everybody's got their own
exactly
liquor brand now, right?
yeah, or
Yeah,
sold clothing or that kind of thing. So I
right.
always, so it was kind of exposed to me that like there's opportunities. It's almost like you find something, a foundation that you can thrive from, and then you use that as an opportunity to, as a platform to, build more things and do things and that kind of thing. And then from there, I started getting a lot of different mentors, especially as I got older, a lot of mentors in business. And so I had folks that like, including yourself, that have been there and done that, and so that definitely encouraged me to keep going, and help allow me to be able to tap into their wisdom
Well, don't
and
count me. I'm busy learning from you right now. I'm telling you, it's just that's why I wanted to do this. So let's jump into it for a few minutes, and if you don't mind. So we were talking the other day and doing a little bit of coaching around, fairly new to getting commercial loan brokering going, but I loved everything you and Isis that works with you was talking about. And so I was like, we got to share this. We got to share. This is such good stuff that people need to hear this. So how new to the brokering space other than writing software?
yeah, so the brokering space, I mean, initially we started our campaign the week before the 1st of September. So we're probably maybe 3 or 4 weeks in,
Weeks in.
and that kind of thing. But we were doing a lot of pre-work prior to that, probably maybe a month and a half or 2 months of pre-work.
It's
Um,
still pretty good, right? I mean, what you're really saying is about 2 months of effort to get ramped up, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
where
for
else
sure.
can you like you can't go into software engineering in 2 months, right? I mean,
No, no. Yeah, and
so
not yeah, yeah, unless like maybe like an internship or that kind of thing, but you wouldn't be
sure.
able to like
You're not
be
writing
marketing.
code and just
Yeah,
going crazy. Like I'm trying to learn a little bit myself, right? And so I may be calling you for some Python help. But
yep,
I'm not here writing code over here to sell licenses to. So not taking you too long to really get ramping up. You mentioned starting campaigns. Maybe you could talk about that for a second, like how you're going about attracting opportunities.
sure. So we've been going because of my experience building enterprise applications. Some of those applications included things where companies were doing marketing, like email marketing and social media paid ads and those types of things. And so in my head, as I started to learn about this business, I knew I wanted to have a campaign element to it because there was just a lot of scalability to it. And I also didn't want to I don't have a lot of time to be cold calling and that kind of stuff. So I
Sure.
wanted to be able to find a way to still be able to bring in leads at scale, and connect with folks that might be interested in these services. So one of the things I did was I set up I set up an email campaign pipeline where basically we have 20 to 30 different email addresses that all route to our company's website, and we basically use those. So there's a concept called cold email, where basically you just it's like sending a direct mail or cold calling someone,
Yeah.
but you don't really know who they are and that kind of thing. You can only send so many emails out per day,
Through a
per email.
provider, right? It's a limitation
Yes,
so that you're not doing too much spam, let's call it, right?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. Like I can't send 10,000 emails out of one
Right.
email address. It would flag the detections that they have on
Right.
there. So in order to do that, you have to scale out horizontally. And so we ended up setting up, 27, like 30-ish emails, in order to be able to send out, 20 emails, 30 emails a day, from each of them. And then, but in order for us to do that, you actually you can't just start off like day one sending emails and sending out 30. So we have software that we use to actually warm up these emails, and the warm up process takes weeks to do, because what happens is you basically run the software, and on day one it just sends one email from every one of those addresses. On day two it sends two emails from every one of those addresses, and then it's basically sending emails, like the emails are sending emails to each other to basically imitate activity, as if this person is like
Interesting.
really active. And then what happens is like as your average increases over time, it doesn't appear strange to your email service
Right. If you
provider
went from
that
0 to 10,000 emails, your service provider would go, "What is going on?" But so that's what
exactly
you mean by warming it up. You sort of getting the service provider used to some traffic and activity building it
Exactly.
over time. What's that time frame look like from zero up to full scale?
It takes about 20 days. But because I wanted to be conservative, I think we took about 30 days to warm them up. And then
Right.
even now, as we're using the emails, we still do warm-ups on the side. So we send 30 actual emails and then 20 warm-up emails on top of that to bring
Got
our
it.
number to 50. So that way, again, it doesn't. And what happens is you'll actually see a direct correlation between how often your email actually enters that person's inbox and that kind of stuff, and doesn't enter the junk folder and that kind of thing. And so it's an ongoing process. But yeah, we do that, and that allows us to send about 700, 600 to 700, sometimes even 900. It depends on how many campaigns we're running,
Yep.
emails per day.
Yep.
So that allows us to really reach out to all kinds of different companies. One of the biggest things that we've been finding, and I've been actively working on that, is that now that we have this infrastructure set up, it's really about the quality of the emails and the leads that we're sending the information out to, because we've proven to ourselves that we can deliver these emails and have them reach the top of that person's inbox. But if
Okay.
the person that they're messaging isn't the right person,
So you're saying the
uh,
copy within the email has to be strong for them to even want to respond? Is that what you're saying?
well, yeah, that too. But I'm
Okay.
also saying that who you're actually sending the email to. So, for example, and how recent the data is.
I see.
Because, for example, there was some list that I had. Another thing I forgot to mention. So I'm a licensed freight broker as well.
I
So I
remember.
Yeah, so I had like these lead lists that I generated just from, being a broker and that kind of thing, like shippers, manufacturers, trucking companies, etc.
Yeah,
So I
explain.
started.
Do me a favor, just
Mhm.
real quick. Explain what a licensed freight broker is. So you're connecting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a similar concept to brokering loans or brokering commercial finance. And basically what we're doing is we're connecting trucking companies to companies that need to ship goods. And so you would reach out to a shipper, you'd get a contract with them, they have particular routes that they want to run on a regular basis. And then from there, you would basically find trucking companies that are able to cover those routes. And then the shipper pays you a certain rate, and then you have to negotiate with the carrier in order for you to get a good rate and that kind of thing. And then that difference is where your profit is. And then
Okay.
the scalability opportunity there is that if you're doing 50 loads a day, and if you're doing 50 loads a day and you're making $100 off of each load, you know what I mean, that becomes. And then again, if it's a company that's shipping food,
Yeah.
those contracts are hard to get. But just as an example, but like if you're shipping food, that's an everyday
All the
24/7,
time.
always needed, you know what I mean? So
And so
those are
to
the
tie it in from your perspective, you had that background, and
Mhm.
so to transition it over to the commercials brokering side, you were like, well, let me see if I get this right. So you're like, okay, I've got those connections. By the way, those
Mhm.
people are always buying equipment, that type of thing. Like, is that what the leap was to kind of go that direction and start with?
Yeah, I saw that there was already an audience. Like I knew trucking companies were already getting equipment financing. I just didn't
Mm-hmm.
know they could get it from me. So that was something that that
Like,
was
not
something.
only can I broker it, but now I can also help finance the equipment. Yeah.
Exactly. And
And
so
that's one of the things I try and encourage people to do. It is that they to focus on a niche you already have experience with, and be
mhm.
able to go into that at the very least just to get you started. So in your example, it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, so I started reaching out to shippers initially. Like that, those were the first lists that I started emailing and reaching out to. And then within the first week, we got someone that was actually interested, did the whole application and everything. The company was doing like 1.1 million, 1.4 million a year. And it was, the one of the biggest things was like one of the main things I was nervous about was like, will I actually be able to get them to send me the documents that are needed in order for me to be able to then send it to the lender and that kind of stuff. And so that was but after going through that, I was like, wow, this is really, not only is it possible, but it's a lot more straightforward than I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Very cool. So if we could just to go back to this, to the software approach, the email approach there for a second. I had a couple of following questions to that. So is this a tool that you've built for yourself, or is this a third party tool you're using?
Yeah, so that we use several tools. One of the main tools that we use in terms of like the leads and that kind of stuff is called Instantly. And basically you set up your emails, there and that kind of thing, and it manages all of the warming up for you and that kind of thing. And then you can send out the emails and campaigns. You can do variations and that kind of stuff. So we use that. But then from the software side, like I have a connector that connects to the Instantly API. And so I'm able to like do things. We have like an internal system that I've built, that I'm building out to like run calculations. For example, if it's a commercial real estate deal, I can see, different types of information, and basically add in all the information about the deal and just get outputted a final report. And then the next step for that will be to actually generate a PDF with all that information on it, slap our logo on top of it, and that'll be like the deal profile that we send to the lenders.
Right.
Basically, just I'm doing the same thing that I would do for any enterprise
Yeah,
customer that I
you're
would.
automating the process as much as you can. So you're using email to go out to folks and attract borrowers.
Yeah,
Then when they come in, you've got sort of is it a web form type idea where you're just gathering certain amounts of data from them that you need as it relates to the deal. And then
yeah,
you're using that to pre-fill a form to basically send a lead letter off to lenders and go, here's the deal I've got, who's interested,
right.
and that kind of
E-
thing.
Exactly.
And do I remember from our last chat about this? Is this something you're considering maybe building out for other brokers, not just you and
Yeah,
your enterprise? Yeah,
yeah,
so I
for
want to give
sure.
you a chance to plug that just in case. I mean, this is
Yeah,
going to go out
absolutely.
to lots of folks, right? So
Yeah, yeah. So actually, that is something that we're looking at now, is building this out and making it so that it's a tool that other folks can use, to be able to work with, be able to handle the volume and be able to manage and keep track of things. For example, there are one thing that stood out to me was that like every lender has its own profile, its own set of products, its
appetite.
own,
Yep.
yeah, appetite and that kind of thing. So being able to keep track of that, and then basically once you plug in your deal into the system, it should be able to then give you a list of the top lenders that would actually be a good fit for that, based on geography, based on appetite, based on lending amount, et cetera, et cetera. And so yeah, we're building that feature out. And it's nice too, because like we're eating our own cooking, because like we've been the guinea pig for this for this software and that kind of thing. And so our goal is to build it out so that it can so that it can actually, so that it's actually working in the field through trial and error and that kind of thing. And then eventually we're going to open it up, and make it available to other folks to be able to use as well, because I think that one of the things that I was looking for, like I was looking at other commercial lending software, and most of the audience for most of the people, like the people who are selling those software, their audience is like well established banks
Yeah,
and
it's
lending
banks and credit unions and folks like that. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And I
It's not
totally
like your
understand.
individual broker, right? And so
Right.
I mean, I'm kind of starting to think that when this goes public, when I publish this, you might start getting worn out by people going, I will be a beta, or I will take that. I'd love to use. So I think some of the folks just like you that have taken my course would probably be very interested in something like that. That's something you and I should talk about offline, just
Yeah, for
how we
sure.
can get that in other people's hands. But I think that's what I loved about what I wanted people to hear from you, is that you're just being very intelligent with how you go about this, right? So you've thought through, and granted, you've got some skill sets that not everybody has, especially on the software side, but you're
Mhm.
obviously clearly just a bright guy in general. But like, you were very deliberate in our first conversation about how you were going to go about it. You know, how you were going to get your leads. And of course, we've talked about this. I usually teach more of a referral marketing approach because, again, not everyone can set stuff up like you do.
Mhm.
But also, giving them resources to folks like yourself who can help in the future with that type of thing. But just very deliberate about, okay, this is how I'm gonna, here's my marketing process: emails and warming them up and getting them ready, and then okay, I'm going to leverage my existing skill set to sort of do this web form and capture everything. And that all ensures. And then when you and I talked, as I do with everyone, I was really stressing about the pre-screening questions, getting really good at those. So I imagine that's going to be get incorporated into your process. And so
For sure.
getting from what was a cold outreach to a much more warm deal where you've got the basis of what the deal looks like already before you send
Mhm.
it down to a lender. And I expect that your close ratio will be a lot higher because of that whole process from A to Z.
Yeah, and the one of the other things too in terms of goal is that I want when dealing with different clients and that kind of thing, I want them to feel confident in our process, and I want them to feel like, hey, these guys know what they're doing. They have a process in place. You know what I mean? Like they're the and one of the things is like if you have a consistent process, it's almost like McDonald's, where like and anytime I've ever gone to McDonald's, even here in Brazil, a double cheeseburger is a double cheeseburger. It tastes exactly the same, and all of those
I
things.
was in
It's so,
Japan for a while, same thing, right? I mean, it was the same. They've
yeah,
got some variations, but also they got the standard, right? So
exactly. And so the consistency, like for us, we know that as long as we're able to fill in our lead pipeline with enough leads to be able to continuously send out the same amount of emails per day, we have calculations that we can run. So for example, if I send 1,000 emails, I know 500 will open to them. Of those 500,
yeah, X
uh,
number are going to want to apply, and the next number are going to give you
exactly,
a full loan package, and X number is going to close, right? You've sort of got your,
exactly.
and it really is it really is what people don't grasp. This is a great point for us to pause on. Is it really is a numbers game like anything else, right? It really just is getting enough deals in, enough good deals that can move forward, enough good deals that lenders want, and then sort of you just watch you go from this one point all the way down. And you should see. I was talking to someone the other day. I was telling them it's like it's 50% approval for a lender, and 50% of those close. So you're looking at like 25%. They were up at 34% just because they made some tweaks to their process. So you're right to think about it, and getting this standardized process across the way will include improve everything.
Yeah,
Um,
and something else too that like I'd like to get set up is that when you with this software based approach, it's like when you're collecting all of this different data and that kind of thing, you can basically have a dashboard that is telling you how the business is doing, and that's the end goal, is to be able to just have a monitor that we can say, okay, so we can see how the business is performing. We can see these are amount of emails, these are how many deals we have that are currently sent out. This is the potential amount, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you have that data, you start collecting enough of that data. In the future, we'd love to add a feature where we'd be able to forecast revenue based on
right.
those types of things. And now you have like now you're able to say, oh, okay, well, I just need to tweak this a little bit more. Or if I can get my open rate, if I can get my open rate to be 5% more, I can increase the bottom line revenue by 20%, et cetera. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but without being able to track those things and visualize them, it can be very difficult to know what needs to happen, or where there are opportunities to tweak and improve your operation.
Yeah. So for someone else who's like you, maybe they're a couple months behind you, right? And they're thinking, oh, this sounds interesting. I've sort of seen this idea. I'm really thinking about it myself. Commercial and broking sounds interesting. What would you say to someone who's maybe where you were, call it 3 to 6 months ago, who was sort of looking for opportunities, trying to figure out a path they could go? And
Well, the first thing I would say that is that this opportunity is real, and one of the things that I found was that there's actually more capital chasing deals than there are deals to be. In other words, you're not going to have a hard time finding quality lenders that can actually facilitate these deals. It's
right,
the other side, making sure that you're talking to the right people, making sure that you're finding the right companies that are actually, and then the timing of it. Like I had one person reach out to me and say, I just got some financing, but I'm gonna save you on our short list so that next time we need some, we can reach out to you again. You know what I mean? So it's about timing and who you're reaching out to. The other thing too is that you really want to learn this business. Take your time. Like you treat it like you would any other career, treat it like you would any other skill. Take your time to learn it and understand. Like the one of the things that I realized was that this is like this is something that you can be doing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And in fact, one of the things I did was I was looking up commercial loan brokers that I had been meeting throughout whether it was through online or things that
Yep.
they were posting, that kind of stuff, and just looking them up on LinkedIn and seeing how long they've been in the business for. And it was so Isis and I were cracking up about it because we were like, wow, some of these folks have been doing the same business for like 20, 25 years. When
Yeah.
you see that kind of longevity in it indicates to me that one, obviously there's a staying power, and then in the beginning, things are always going to be slow because you don't know what you don't know and you're still learning and that kind of thing. But to me, the biggest thing is the consistency and to always be learning. Like one of the things that I started doing was paying attention to what the Federal Reserve is talking about, what's going on CNBC, what are the other banks, the commercial banks are talking about as far as the business world, what are
Right.
their
And
concerns?
understanding the impact of those things that happen. So just something as simple
Exactly.
as, okay, they raised the Fed funds rate again. That means that Wall Street Journal federal prime rate is probably going to go up, which means every SBA loan is going to go up because they all peg their rate to the prime rate. Like just
Exactly.
knowing those, it sounded like a lot to someone who doesn't know that stuff. And yes, I've been
Mm-hmm.
in this for a long time, but it's really not that complicated. It's just monitoring what happens and understanding the downstream effects of those types of things that occur.
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting that I've been seeing in the news, it has to do with commercial real estate because there were a lot of companies that had these basically adjustable rate mortgages
Yes.
on their real estate and that kind of stuff. And now, their balloon payment is coming up soon. So either they need to refinance or they need to sell the property. And so there's going to be a lot of transactions that are happening within the commercial real estate space, just as
Absolutely, right. Just monitoring that and recognizing that that equals opportunity. So balloon payments being a large payment that's due at a certain time frame, usually toward the end of a loan term, and going,
Mhm.
hey, all those people are probably not just going to write huge checks, but if they can refinance, they don't have to do that, and I can be the one who facilitates that transaction. So
Mhm.
it's super. Man, you just continue to impress, man. I love it. I absolutely love it. I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what happens. Just if you're open to it, what if someone was like, "Man, I love this guy. I want to reach out to him." If you're open to it, is there a way people could connect with you? Maybe a website or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
I'll
You can
I'll put
just
a link in everything.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll say yeah, you can just connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message. Would love to meet different people and connect with you. And if there's an opportunity to collaborate or something, definitely open to that. But yeah, you can connect with me on I would say LinkedIn is probably the best.
Okay.
Because most of the other social medias that I use is like, Instagram
Other stuff.
and
Yeah. Well, you
yeah.
never, I get a feeling, you're going to have some people reaching out saying the software that you're talking about. How do I get that?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you know what? If you guys are interested in the software,
okay.
I'll start creating a wait list. You know what I mean? Because that'll help me
Exactly.
and that kind of thing. Because that'll help me be able to see, what the demand is and that kind of thing, and maybe even get maybe I can start working with different folks to get feedback on what features you guys actually want first. So that way, and those types of things.
Good
So
product management approach,
yeah,
right? Get
yeah,
that
because if
feedback
like
loop.
right. For if I can get, because that would be one thing. Because right now I'm building the software based on what I think I need and all of those other things. But if I have feedback from other users as well, or other potential users and that kind of thing, like I need this feature for sure. I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to do that, and that kind of thing. Then that would also help drive the direction of what I need to focus on and to make the software as useful as possible.
Cool. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah. Thank you.